I'm Marie Gourou.
I'm Jerry McGreer.
And I'm Katie.
And this is Rude Eats, a delicious podcast where we sink our teeth into every episode of the show Hannibal.
And this week we are reading your feedback, and we are joined by a special guest, as you have heard. Hi, Katie.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Hi, Mary. We haven't done this podcast in a long time. How are you?
Oh my God. I don't know how to answer that question, but I'm here. So
it's very complicated in the real world. We're gonna so glad to be focused on Hannibal only. This podcast.
Yeah.
So people may know Katie from stuff because Katie has done stuff on the internet before. Do you want to walk us through what you have done that people would know you from?
Sure. Well, first, Mary and I did an Our Flag Means Death podcast called The Gentleman Pirates Library.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty gay.
It was pretty gay.
It was. It was very, very gay.
And then I do a Destiel Podfic podcast, which is audiobooks for fan fiction, and where I make audiobooks for random fanfics of the Destiel variety.
Also
and
sounds pretty gay.
That is super gay. And it's called Making It Up As We Go.
Yes. What's the Our Flag Means Death podcast?
Gentleman Pirates Library.
Gentleman Pirates Library. So we'll have links to both of those in the show notes. So be sure to check all of that stuff out because it's very much fun. We've known Katie for a long, long time. Old school listeners of my Supernatural podcast, Monster of the Week, may recognize her as the voice of it was Careless Hunters that you did, right?
Careless Hunters, yep. Season 14, I think. Season
14, I believe.
Yep.
And also just like a wonderful contributor of all things Monster of the Week. So we appreciate her. So so we're going to be talking about Hannibal today, but not in our normal format because this is not an episode. We're going to be talking about kind of our general opinions of season 1. We're going to be reading a bunch of your feedback because y'all came out in like in whatever a drove is. Y'all did that.
Yes.
I don't know what a drove is. Is that like a dozen? Does anybody know what a drove is?
Isn't it like just a lot?
A large group of people.
See,
a large group.
I don't think either one of y'all know. I think y'all are both just being
don't.
like, isn't it just? And trying to say some like definition sounding stuff. Like,
drove.
It's a noun. Well, thanks.
It's a herd here it is. A herd or flock of animals being driven in a body. There you go.
Well, that's much more boring than I anticipated.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about you guys' opinions about
droves.
Hannibal and droves.
And my daughter. So if you want to, my daughter wouldn't call a flock of birds a flock of birds. She called it a bird army when she was like 3 or 4. She's like, look at that bird army.
We don't really have like for our Supernatural podcast, we called everybody hunks, and it just kind of stuck. But we don't really have like what we call our listeners on this podcast, do we? Have we? Well, I guess we could just call them cannibals, but that seems a little rude.
Yeah. What do you call like a
really
dinner
funny.
guests? You know, like
dinner guest is good. Yeah, that's good. Welcome back all of our dinner guests. We do say bon appetit at the end of every podcast, so maybe dinner guests would be pretty good. Anyway,
I like it.
Announcements. We have 2 that we'd like to share with you, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk about both of them.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, they are kind of related to one another. So as you know, we will have season 2 coming up, which we're very, very excited about. We will have a new song for that one, which we're not going to tell you what it is. We're not going to give you too many details because we are going to have a YouTube premiere for it. Jeremy and I thought that it would be funny to have it on Valentine's Day.
Yes, it's either going to be funny or empty of people. That's going to be the two places that it'll be, because Valentine's Day is a Friday. So
it's a Friday. The issue being that I'm not around that weekend because I'm going to winter camp. So that's just not going to happen. So we thought that like the 14th would be really. I thought it would be funny. Yes. We don't have a time just yet, but we will give all of those details out on social media, particularly on Blue Sky, as well as our Discord. So if you haven't joined our Discord, you might want to consider doing that. It's open and free, and so long as you're 18 plus, you can access it.
Yeah.
Did I get all that right for the song?
You did. Absolutely.
Okay. Now for the other announcements that I think a lot of people are going to be very, very happy about. So
excited about this one.
Probably know. Jeremy and I have been recording a lot faster than we've been releasing episodes.
We're almost done with season 2, you guys. Like,
right.
no exaggeration whatsoever. Like, we are almost done with season 2.
And the only reason why we're not done is because, like, I had to emergency travel, and like there was like life stuff going on for both of us.
Yes.
So, like, there you go. So we thought that we would switch from a 2-week schedule to a weekly schedule so that you can get your episodes faster and just enjoy more of this podcast as you go.
You don't know how excited I am personally about that.
Did you know this? Have you told you this? Oh,
no.
This is new. Oh, yes,
I'm so excited.
A live reaction, yeah. So yeah, like no more 2-week waits, just a 1-week wait.
Yeah.
Which is going to be super scary. So now we're going to have to keep up our normal, our normal recording schedule, which is like, twice a week now, basically at this point. So.
Yes, but also keep in mind that there's only 3 seasons, right? So like after 3 seasons, we're done with this.
It's true. It's true. That's very, very true.
So we only have season 3 to record, and we're done.
I will say too, we haven't really talked about announcing this, but I've had a couple of questions. Privately about it. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but for those that you're wondering, like, oh, there's only 3 seasons, what's going to happen to the podcast? The podcast will always be here, and Mary and I will find something else to talk about. And the goal is to find something as meaty. Meaty is probably the wrong word. Something as delicious as Hannibal to ingest. Something is complicated. We won't be, both of us have podcasts on inferior shows. So we both covered Supernatural, which is like does not stand up to the level of analysis I think that me and Mary want to do at this point. So we want to find something that's as like complicated and deep and as interesting. If you have suggestions, please send them in. I think we've got it down to like a list. And I think we may have even chosen like one off the list that we prefer, although nothing is set in stone because we haven't even started season 3 of this podcast yet. So we
do have a short list.
Yeah, we have days to go before we need to make that decision.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so that's all very, very exciting. And Katie, we're so happy that you're here with us to make these announcements and all that stuff. And I would like to ask you, what is your experience with Hannibal?
Okay, so I have technically watched seasons 1 and 2, but I binged it when I had COVID for the first time. It was like early 2021, and I had a pretty high fever, so I don't really remember much. And like I thought when I first started, I was like, well, I'll remember. Like once I start watching, I'll remember. But like I full on gasped about the fishing lure reveal in the finale. And like when they were revealing Hannibal as the Chesapeake Ripper, and he's like seething at his computer at Freddie Lounge's article, I was like, oh, is he the Chesapeake Ripper? Like, so I had no clue. Like, I don't know what I absorbed, but like our friend Lucia gave me their password for Prime and was like, watch Hannibal, because it wasn't free for Prime. It was like you had to rent it or buy it or whatever. And I binged it. but I stopped watching it. I just wasn't like, unlike you, Mary, I cannot forgive cannibalism. And
it's a skill.
Honestly, the more it felt like the show wanted me to root for Hannibal, like the less I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just kind of like, ugh, you know, but the more I watch with you all, the more I appreciate it. So I'm curious how I'm going to feel with this watch with you all. But as of right now, I do like Hannibal as a villain, but like his manipulation of Will has made me so angry. Like,
oh yeah,
my poor baby Will. Like, stop
I know.
it.
Didn't we find out there's another podcast that has a catchphrase very similar to I can excuse cannibalism, but I thought I saw that on Blue Sky recently.
Yes, it literally just hold on. Let me just I'll pull it up. Blue Sky, but yes. So apparently they have another catchphrase. Ours. Well, I mean, do you really want to take credit for that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that. Yeah, I've got no problem
Okay,
with
great.
it. I've said so much worse. I've said so much worse on podcasts.
Medical eating a minor apparently for Wrath of the Fancast. Fanscast apparently is what it is. So another.
So they
Hannibal
can
podcast.
excuse eating a minor, is what they're.
Wow.
I don't know. Yes, apparently they draw the line.
Minors carry a lot in that sentence.
So I can excuse cannibalism, but I draw the line at eating a minor.
Oh,
is
okay.
The
All right.
the Fancast thing.
Okay.
So, because I draw the line at medical gaslighting, but apparently Wrath of the Fanscast is eating a minor.
Eating a
that's
minor.
that's
Probably
yes.
referring to Abigail, if I had to guess.
Probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that makes a little bit more sense. COVID media is really interesting. I've read 14 books of the Wheel of Time series during the COVID, and I wasn't even sick. Like this was just during the shutdown or whatever, and I can tell you what happens at the beginning, and I can tell you what happens at the end. But like, there's probably 13 books in the middle that I just couldn't tell you anything about. Like, I don't know what happens when. I don't know why there's 14 books. Like, why there's so many. I have no idea. Like, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, it's interesting what COVID did to us as in terms of media consumption, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure. So you're finding like a real difference between like the last time that you watched it that you don't actually remember versus this time that you remember.
Well, right. Like the feeling I was left with, it was almost like I'm questioning now whether the show actually wants me to like Hannibal. Like, obviously, you know, he's not the protagonist, but we see enough of him to try to like maybe humanize him or just see his POV that like the show. But is the show presenting him as like someone to be understood or liked, or is, I don't know. I think maybe I got it more from the fandom, because the fandom is like, ooh, Hanagram, you know, and oh, you're going to love them together. And I'm like, I do not love them together. This is terrible. So,
as a matter of fact, this does not work for me.
But like, I can appreciate it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think especially season 1 to me is really, really hard to see it. I think, you know, I'm going to reserve any comments about season 2, but I think in season 1 anyway, and it shows like there's such a shift, because I was re-listening to some of our episodes and like there's such a shift for me, like the second that I realize what Hannibal is doing to Will, like I'm like, and it's awful, but it's true. Like I will reiterate that I can excuse cannibalism in the case of Hannibal, but I like the things that he does to Will are just like, to me, like pretty unforgivable, right?
Yeah.
And so
like, this man is so sick. Like, he just needs antibiotics. Please.
I think it's interesting to talk about too. Like you mentioned that he's not set up as a protagonist. I think he actually is set up as a protagonist. It's just a protagonist that doesn't do anything good. Right? Like it's not. It's and it's not even one of those like Walter White, you know, anti-hero characters. It's just like somebody presented to be the protagonist of the show in every single way except for their actions. Because I guess
that's how they fuck with you. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Like because like this, the way that he he styles himself, the way that he comports himself among other people, the way that he is incredibly smart and like vaguely superhuman at the same time. Like all of these things are like kind of what we associate with our normal hero characters, except this guy eats people,
Right.
which is universally bad.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. Just making sure everybody agreed before I moved on. Wanted to pause. If you're listening out there on your radio and you just went, I just want you to turn the podcast off right now. You're in trouble. We got you. We got you.
Got him.
No, so I completely agree with you, Jeremy. And I've been thinking about this too. Like, who between Will and Hannibal is the protagonist of the series? Because the show is named Hannibal, right? Not Will
Right.
Graham. And yet, like, we feel so much more protective of Will than we do of Hannibal, right? As viewers, or at least I do. Maybe not everybody, but I certainly do.
I think we could have both of them as protagonists. I think the show sets up Hannibal as more of a protagonist. It's I don't know if people are going to laugh at this or not, but Will is almost set up as like a damsel in distress for me.
No,
like,
of course.
just
But you're
waiting
right.
waiting to be rescued throughout season 1, right? Like that's
Yes.
or in need of rescue as season 1 goes on and on and on, especially towards the end.
Well, and I put it in the Discord, and I apologize because I grew up on Blazing Saddles because my dad loved it. But I put the GIF of, isn't anyone going to help that poor man? That's how they set you up to just be watching this going, help him, somebody save him, somebody help him, please. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's a show, and I think that's one reason. Like as we talked about earlier, trying to choose a follow-up episode or follow-up show to this one that I'm having a lot of difficulty, because there's a lot of shows out there that do a lot of things. It's very like, this is such a rarefied kind of show to do this. In fact, the guest that's going to be in our season 2 guest episode was like, why did y'all start with one of the best shows? Like, you're going to do nothing but move down. Like, this is the problem. But it's so fascinating to find a show that messes with your head this much, that can controls the reality of the show quite this much. It's also, I think, so I watched it, as I've talked about a lot. I've watched it as it's come out. I've binged it. And I've also watched it for the podcast. I've talked a lot about watching stuff for podcasts is a much different thing than just watching stuff for fun or binging stuff or whatever. And watching stuff for podcasts that you're doing with Mary, Katie, I think that you'll agree with me, makes you like hit the books. You're like, I got to be smart because like this, because homegirl is real smart.
No,
So
she's just coming in with like history and culture and facts and like scientific shit, and you're like, okay.
Nut blood is not going to suffice on this one, Jeremy. Like, I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to have to really pull it together to get something to get my own opinion on here. So it's interesting talking about the show in a different way than I think a lot of people would consume the show. Because I think if you just consume the show, like if you just binge the episodes like you were talking about, like a lot of the flavor gets lost. It's not the flavor.
Yes.
A lot of the
No, I love what you're doing.
I'm just going to continue to do it. I'm not going to
Keep
apologize for it anymore. But
just do it.
A lot of the flavor gets lost throughout it, and it's interesting going back and watching it with a podcast that like dives into it. It's interesting to watch it, to go back and watch all this stuff for a podcast, or for me and Mary to go through and like actually look into and like pull apart and tear apart all of these different things. So.
One thing that I really appreciated actually was, so the way that I consume media is usually like very, I binge anything that I watch, and then I rewatch it a couple of times just to kind of like be able to go back to the beginning and see where some things might have been like hinted at beforehand, like before they actually happened. And one of the things that I really enjoyed, like between us recording seasons 1 and 2, is that I went back and I binged season 1 like a couple of times, just like straight from start to finish. And it was weird because I didn't think that I would be able to, just because some episodes are so disturbing. But it just sort of made more sense when I watched it. And it felt it had such a different feeling now that I knew where things were going. Like I paid a lot more attention to, particularly to Hannibal. And one thing that also came out that I just couldn't stop thinking about is the fact that like we basically have never found out who Will is before the fever, right? Before the encephalitis.
Yes.
And you know, he seems so like defenseless throughout, like especially throughout like near the mid to end of season 1, which is when you start to really get to know your characters, that I sort of ascribed to him the fact that he was kind of defenseless and powerless and a little weak, right? In terms of like being able to defend himself. But when you watch the first few episodes of season 1, Will is not like that at all. And so I'm as we are navigating through season 2, like I'm having so much fun kind of thinking about who is Will Graham, basically. And I don't know how you guys kind of within season 1, of course, like how you kind of conceptualize that.
Well, like he was already in a puddle of sweat at night in the first episode, right?
Yes.
So like presumably he had this encephalitis, maybe not as progressed from the very beginning. And so when at the finale of this season, when he's like, "Hello, Dr. Lecter," and I'm like, oh, he's in his right mind. Like he finally we see him without the illness. And like I was very excited for season 2 to see how he's going to change. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if we saw the real Will Graham at all in season 1.
Well, because he also like remember when in the first episode when Jack Crawford comes to see him, and Jack is supposed to be like the big boss, right? Of the
guru.
The guru, right? Exactly. Like he's supposed to be the guy in terms of like in Will's field, and Will is just like dismissing him, you know, like he's not showing him the reverence that like you would expect a teacher, or like that you would expect somebody who is not, if we're speaking about hierarchy at the FBI, like who is not at his level, right? And he's really not. He's actually like telling him like, you know, I think that what you named this museum is kind of silly, right? Like, which is surprising.
They don't have that mentor-mentee relationship that Jack shows with a lot of other people. I think too, it's interesting to compare this. Katie, we didn't ask this. Have you read any of the books or anything, or seen any of the other movies? I've
seen Silence of the Lambs. A long time ago, I've seen Red Dragon.
Okay, sorry about that one.
No, you're fine.
How would you like a movie that directly interprets a book?
Oh no,
I'm on record as not being a huge Red Dragon fan, despite it being absurdly well cast. So
the only thing I remember is the Ray Liotta scene. Is that
that's
from Red
not
Dragon?
That's not even Red Dragon. So.
Oh, what's that from?
That's Hannibal. Yeah.
Oh, is that from Hannibal? Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I guess I've seen that too.
So Ray Liotta playing I can't remember his name. Why don't I say Chopin?
That's Chilton.
Chilton. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point I was going to make is like in the books, we don't get a lot of like Will's normality, right? We don't get a lot of his like going home to eat supper with his family. What we get with Will from the books is a lot of like on the scene crime investigation stuff, like not necessarily the pendulum, but very much like that we see in the show. We get a lot of like sitting in the hotel room drinking exactly 2 fingers of scotch while I'm reviewing the case, trying to come up with a clue kind of thing. And we get some like bad things have happened to Will Graham, so he's recuperating with his family stuff. And none of that is like what happened before, right? So when we meet Will Graham, he's already like had his first experience with Hannibal Lecter and has been almost murdered for it.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of fascinating because like the stuff that we're bringing up, and other people in our we'll talk about this a little bit later in our as we start talking about some user submissions that we got. Nobody really knows what Will Graham was like before this. And I think one of the cool things that you can imagine one of the cool things the show does is allow you to imagine that he could be multiple different ways, right? And without getting into season 2 spoilers, but let's just talk about that, hello, Dr. Lecter moment for the in the finale, which I think will send chills up your arms regardless if you've seen Silence of the Lambs or not. I think you fully geek out if you have, but if you haven't, you're still like, holy shit. But from the first moment you see Will Graham to that moment in season 1, like, you really don't know who he was before, and it could be anything. Like, that whole experience in season 1 could have changed him so dramatically that what happens in season 2 could be something totally different than what he was before. And it's just kind of, it's so fascinating that a show holds that back. And obviously the show was canceled. We don't know what they would have eventually explained or not explained, blah blah blah. But I kind of have the feeling that the show never would have bothered showing us like a flashback of him and Dad fixing a boat in Biloxi, Mississippi, or whatever the fuck they said,
in the middle of their living room.
Yes, lounging whorishly in their sitting room.
Here's how you lay, son.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Hand me that Phillips head and put that lug up. So I guess that kind of finishes my point. Is I think it's interesting that nobody knows, right? Like, I'd be very curious to interview Thomas Harris about it. Coming soon to a podcast near you, I'm sure.
I love that though. Like, I love the fact that we don't know.
Yeah,
it's because there's actually so much in the show that we don't know, and specifically actually about the character of Hannibal too. Like, not just Will, but Hannibal, because like. Oh no, that's from season 2. There are a few moments. I'm like, no, I can't talk about that. But there are a few moments where you just never know what Hannibal is thinking, right? Like, the actions that he ends up taking, but you don't actually know what he is thinking underneath that, right? Like, the way that he talks about wanting to help Will when he's like clearly not helping him, and yet Bedelia is like, yes, of course, like he was really trying to help you, or he thought he was trying to help you. Like, that leaves me with such discomfort, because like, what do you mean he was trying to help him? Like, that's crazy talk. Like,
I can't pin him down, and it frustrates me. Like, Hannibal, I cannot pin him down. I can't like understand his thinking, and I know that's probably how it's set up, but like, the fact that he's like literally crying, close to sobbing at an opera, and it's like, well, wait a minute, like, how do you feel these things? Like, I don't understand. How can you literally murder and eat people and then cry at an opera? Because that just seems so diametrically opposed to me. Like, you can't, those two things can't exist inside one person. Like, you either have feelings or you don't. But I understand that it's not as simple as that. But I really can't pin him down, and it is really frustrating. I think that's part of my frustration with Hannibal is like, well, am I supposed to like him because he's so well put together, and like, he's crying at opera and he's helping Will and he's crying about Will to Bedelia, but like, is he just a little chaos gremlin, and then he regrets doing those things later?
So I wanted to get into this. You brought up regret and remorse in your notes for this, and I wanted to talk about that a lot because I don't think that, and I don't want to ignore your earlier point, by the way. I think the way that Hannibal is set up is that you're supposed to have very complicated relationships with him, right? Like, you're supposed to not know if you like him or not. He's so charming, and he's so suave, and he's so capable that you just instantly want to like him, right? Like, you just want to be around him, just to elevate yourself, even like a Chilton character, or you want to be around him in maybe Alana's case because she's attracted to him because he is so capable. But this idea of regret and remorse, and does he experience it? And I'm a weird guy when it comes to one of those like questions. It was like, what would you change about your life if you could do it differently? Like, what would you do? What would you go back? And I'm very lucky, and I recognize my own privilege in life of where I am right now, the things that I'm capable of doing, and like, even the things that are challenges in my life, like how lucky I am to have methods of of dealing with those challenges, so support networks in place and things like that. It would take so much work for me to replicate this that like it would be impossible, right? And like just speaking of just my relationship with my wife alone, like I don't know how I got here. Like I don't know how I got this lucky. Like I said the right things at the right time apparently, and it worked. I don't know how. I don't know what I said. So when I look at stuff, when someone asks me, do you regret, what would you change? My answer is always like, I don't regret anything. I don't have any remorse for anything. Like I wouldn't change a single thing about my life because I'm happy of who I am. And again, I want to express, like, I know that is an extremely privileged, like, place of being.
Right.
But I want to compare that to Hannibal because I think that's where Hannibal lives. And I think that's almost what we're seeing Hannibal. As much as we see Will going through a change in season 1 with the encephalitis, and we talk about change a lot on this podcast, and the show talks about change a lot. I think that is the change that Abigail and Will is putting Hannibal through. Of all of a sudden, he's regretting that he doesn't have a family, that he doesn't have anybody that he can share this with, and it's those kind of things that make him have those emotions that we don't quite understand. That those are the kind of things that are making him cry at operas and things like that. And within Will and within Abigail, we see for the first time, or he sees maybe for the first time, that we know of. I think the show. I believe the show pretty clearly expresses that this is the first time it's happened to him. I don't think we're gonna again see like teenage Hannibal meeting teenage Billy. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think we're gonna see that at any point. But I believe that this is the first time that he's seen that and seen a chance for family, seen a chance for like people like him, even if he has to turn them into him in order for that to happen. And I think I've been talking for a really long time now. I'm looking at at the waveform going, oh my God, I forgot to let anybody else talk. But go ahead. Yes.
No. Finish your thought.
I just wanted to, I guess my summation is that I think that as we see him cry at that opera, I think at that exact moment in time, he has no regrets at all for anything he's ever done in his life. He's crying at how beautiful it is. I think as we see him cry, for instance, and with Bedelia, as Will has been, is this season 2? Am I talking about season 2? That's gotta be season 1.
Okay, because season 1. No, is it season 2? He cries with Bedelia after Will gets arrested
in season 1. Yeah. So
yeah.
So as we see that, I don't think that's regret or remorse. I think that's just genuine emotion that it happened. I don't think that's attached to anything that he did. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, look at that smirk when he goes and visits him in the psychiatric hospital. Like he's like, "Yeah, I got you right where I want you. Like I did this to you."
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. I don't,
How do you have it both ways?
Right.
Okay. I think Hannibal Lecter is such a difficult character to understand, man, because he is like ununderstandable, like you were saying, Katie, right? Like he has emotions in places that you don't expect for somebody who does the things that he does. And I think that is also kind of the point, right? Like the show makes a point of saying that he is not like other psychopaths, like other criminals, like other people who would take the actions that he takes, right? And I think that kind of emotion that we're seeing is exactly in line with that. I also think that Hannibal, I think if we want to understand Hannibal, we have to understand him through the lens of loneliness. Because I think that for most of his life, he has chosen solitude. To have this person suit, this veil separating him from others. Like it was such a conscious decision for him to do that in order for him to be able to continue, killing and eating people with impunity, of course. So like that, he had to kind of do that. And he made that choice. It seems like a choice that he was very, very happy with until he meets Will and Abigail. And this is where I think I'm kind of like agreeing with what you're saying, Jeremy, that like these two characters are making Hannibal realize that maybe the solitude that he had sought for so long has turned into loneliness, and that he needs human connection in a way that he didn't even know that he needed. And he doesn't know how to get that, right? And I think we're seeing, or at least, anyway, we might see him in season 2 trying to seek that connection, perhaps.
You see how hard my job is, Mary? Do you understand? Do you see how much I've been working throughout this entire season?
Do you see?
Jeremy, listen, everybody says, every comment that we get is like, oh my God, Jeremy, how do you keep a straight face?
It's hard. It's hard, y'all. It's real difficult.
Well, but so why does he kill Abigail then? And why does he get Will locked up? Like, I see him as like someone who doesn't necessarily, he's not necessarily poking at the people around him. He's like poking at himself going, how does this make me feel? How does Will make me feel? How does Abigail make me feel?
So, people who are like emotionally immature, like they'll do things and then you're like, but that's not what you wanted. Like they'll sabotage themselves in relationships and whatnot. Yeah. I feel like Hannibal does that, but like with Hannibal intensity. Right? Yeah. So like for him, it's not that he's going to like sabotage a date. Like he's going to kill his daughter, right? Like that's like the level of Hannibalisms that we're seeing. And so that's kind of how I'm seeing it, where because he does tell Abigail, he's like, I'm so sorry that I couldn't protect you in this life. Yeah. The same way that somebody would be like, I'm so sorry I can't be with you, like, because I don't know, I feel like I'm not good enough for you kind of thing, right? Like it's the same kind of tone. And I feel like that's a way to kind of explain what he's doing, his actions, basically.
Okay.
I also wanted to talk about Hannibal's, as we see through season 1, and this is a lot of this will come from the books as well. But as we see him basically collect serial killers or try to, so we see him adopt Abigail. We see him and try to bring something out of Will throughout season 1, and then we see this relationship between Franklin and supernatural guy who we got,
yes, which we have to say
who we forgot to mention was on Supernatural, except in our own DMs.
Wasn't he Raphael?
Yes,
Raphael. Thank you.
Franklin and it can't be
Tobias.
I don't know why I always want to go to Leonardo. Anyway,
I mean, it fits him. It suits him.
We see him try to bring that out in a lot of people. So the question, like, why does he kill Abigail, right? If he views her as somebody that could be family, it's because her change got fucked up. She learned about him too early, right?
Okay.
Will, he wasn't planning on the relationship between Will and... He wasn't planning on Will taking her and showing her things that made her realize things about Hannibal so early. So he had to end that. So he ended that. And if we think about that as, like a moth turning into a butterfly, to take kind of the metaphor from Silence of the Lambs, which is not used really here at all. But if we think about that of like, oh, I'm going to specifically like buy this moth from overseas and turn it into this gorgeous butterfly, but it doesn't work and you have to kill the moth. Like that's what he's looking at, right? Like to me, that's what his is kind of how he was looking at Abigail, even at the same time as looking at this moth as a family.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
But so my biggest bone to pick with season 1 is Abigail, and I'll tell you why. Like when you read a story and there's like a major typo, it takes you right out of the story and you think, oh, the author didn't catch that one, or the editor didn't catch that. Like when I do my audiobooks, like my whole goal is for them to not realize that I'm there. So if I mispronounce a word, it just takes you right out of the story. Abigail's presence in their life and the logistics of that took me right out of the story. Every time they were like, well, we're her fathers now, I was like, bitch, how? Like this would never be allowed. Like, she's from Minnesota. Does she have a cousin?
Does she have an aunt?
Why would she be at a psychiatric facility on the East Coast? And then when she lived in Minnesota, like, and if she was a minor, she would have like an advocate. And if she was an adult, she'd be able to sign herself out. She wouldn't have to sneak out. Like like the whole thing, just every time she was on screen and they were like, well, we're her father. And everyone around them are like, yes, you all are like family now. It's an ongoing investigation. Multiple people murdered, like in the finale when they finally are like, well, I guess we better solve this Garrett Jacob Hobbs case. It was like,
Yes.
Weren't you doing that before?
Wasn't somebody
That made
not
me
somebody's
so angry.
job?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
They're
that
like,
we
guess we got to look at it again. Oh.
We've recorded a bunch of season 2, as we keep mentioning, and one of the questions that we keep asking is, why does everybody at the FBI forget to FBI? Like they just forget how to FBI, and it's one of those things that I think the show was sold to NBC on a premise of it being a certain kind of show, and it very much is a certain kind of show, right? Like it very much is like a crime procedural show. So every once in a while they have to go to a science lab and say science things.
That don't make sense.
even if they make no sense whatsoever. Which, hey, like most crime procedurals don't, right? Like
Yes, that's also true.
Like shout out to Wizard Nutgrinder on the Monster of the Week Discord for going through every single X-Files episode and going like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
Oh my god, the X-Files is particularly bad.
It's really, really bad about it. So it's stuff like that is kind of like, and I can definitely, this is not me arguing with you, Katie, at all, or disagreeing with you, but like stuff like that is just like, I'm happy the relationship is there. Like it makes Will and Hannibal's relationship so much more complicated. It makes stuff so much more interesting that like I don't care.
Yeah, it just took me out. Like I said, like if there's something in there, and so I just every time I'd be like, why is she even here? Why is she even a part of this?
No, but I completely agree with you, because honestly, like there was a part of me, I think I asked that question at one point. I'm like, how old is Abigail? Like,
we did. Yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, this is not how this would happen at all. But I think also like, so of course that I think that's the story needing to tell the story. But if we really look at like Hannibal and Will being like, we're her fathers now, blah, 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 blah. I think this also goes to show how twisted an idea of family Hannibal has, right?
And Will,
like,
frankly.
And Will, thank you. Because like, oh, you killed her dad, so now you're her dad? Like, and I think that like that's deranged, right? Like, I mean, you can I think
that's
that
Castiel level. Castiel and Claire. Sorry, I killed Jimmy.
Oh no! But there you go. But and so
we haven't made that comparison. That's Now it's not. It's going to be running through our heads forever.
Oh yeah, that's done now. But Claire had a normal quote unquote reaction to it, right? And Abigail also has a very twisted idea of family, because look at who her father is, right? And so I think that you put these three like disturbed individuals together, and they're going to latch on to each other in a way that's probably not very healthy. And so I wasn't taken up by the fact that he would call himself her dad, because it made sense to me that he was like not seeing this the way that like a normally constituted person might.
Boy, your brain's fried. Get some antibiotics, please.
Right, exactly.
Yes, please, somebody get this man some drugs. Get this man to a hospital.
Get this man a brain scan.
Get him a brain scan post haste. I want to wrap up thoughts about season 1 so we can get into commentary, because we have a lot of it, and we have a lot of it that's thought provoking, and some of it that's not so thought provoking. So
I need to bring up one thing about the beauty of the show and how like it's all just people speaking in beautiful rooms, and because Eddie Izzard was in the show, and she does a wonderful stand-up, I think it was in Dress to Kill, she talks about the room with the view and a staircase with a pond is like how British movies are, and like American movies are like the room with the staircase from hell, the pond of death, and like it just reminds me, like I think Hannibal is a perfect combination of the two. Like they walk in and they're like, "Oh, what is it, Sebastian? I'm arranging matches." Like it just cracks me up. So if you have a chance, if you haven't seen it, go watch the Dress to Kill bit about American movies versus British movies, because it is like a perfect encapsulation of Hannibal.
And I mean, I think it's no mistake that the two main protagonists are from different places in Europe, right? Like, I think that that's no mistake. And I think that it's very purposeful also that Jack Crawford is an American actor. You know, like I think that they've made these choices very deliberately and oh my God, amazing.
A huge accent, American accent is great as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially it's so wild to hear him talk in a British accent because this is pretty much the only show that I'm familiar with him in. Like I haven't watched a lot of other Hugh Dancy stuff. Although apparently he was in a King Arthur movie that I've got to watch it at some point. So
yes, you do, and they interact, and oh my God.
So it's interesting to see just to hear him talk like obviously his normal accent. And to your point, Katie, about like the fanciness of it, there's a thing out there. I don't know if it's an outtake or an interview or what, but there's a line from the show that people consider very popular. I wish I could remember what it was. Was a line from the show that is like people are like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And Hugh Dancy is like, yeah, I just kind of said that to oh man, why is my brain so full of holes today? The guy that makes the show,
Brian Fuller.
Thank you. I said that to Brian one day, and he was like, "That's great. We're using it." And
it's kind of like you saying that Mads didn't really understand what he was saying.
Like half the shit that,
but it elevated the
yeah.
delivery of it, and like everyone's analyzing it and cutting it apart, and they're like, "That's the way he delivered that line," you know? Yeah. It reminds me, I took an art class when I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and you basically have to take the intro level to every subject matter there is. And so I was taking a fine arts class, and they have you do different drawing. We were doing oil pastels, and for the final project, it was an abstract self-portrait. And I'm not so great with the abstract. Like, tell me what you want on the paper and I'll give it to you. Tell me what you want it to look like and I'll do my best. But like, they were like, it's a self-portrait, an abstract self-portrait. I'm like, so it needs to look like me. And they're like, no. Okay. Well, so it needs to look like a person. No. It's an abstract self-portrait. So for the project, they actually give you like a piece of paper, like a very large piece of paper, and that's what you draw your project on. And you don't get a second one. So if you mess up, you take a straight razor and you scrape the oil pastel off of the page. And it's still there, but you end up building on top of it and you can't really see it. And so, and I don't know if that's standard for anybody, but that's what happened in this class. And so I was making this like weird, very multicolored kind of thing, and I hated it. And I was like, you know what, whatever. I scraped it, and what I wanted to do was like make like a fuzzy, like when you look at yourself in the shower, or you're in the mirror after a shower and the shower's all fogged up or whatever. And it was the morning before I had to turn this in, like at like 11 o'clock. And I'm just like putting shit on, just oil pastel on there and like making it very hazy and fuzzy looking. And we go up, and the process was you put it up on the wall, and everyone took turns critiquing each drawing and giving feedback. And it was hell, honestly. And we get to mine, and everyone's like, oh, wow, yeah. You can see how hard she worked at building up all these colors. Like, you can tell, like, yeah, the majority of it's blue, but like, look, you can see the reds and the purples behind it. And like, she just took so much time. And I'm like, oh no, that was the one I scrapped. Like, I did not do that. Listen. And it was just, they put so much intent behind it. And I'm like, yep, yes, I did. Yep, I worked really hard on this.
There you go. I think this is also like when I talk about the intent on Supernatural, this is kind of what I mean. Like, sometimes things happen and it's like really cool, but you're like, but did they really mean it that way? Because like the way that they talk about
way into it.
Exactly. The way they talk about it, they're like, yeah, we just threw shit on a script, right? The same way that you threw oil pastel like on a sheet. But you can tell that there's such a difference though with this show, because it is really like it's crafted, right? Like it's really thought out, and of course there must be some like, oh, this kind of just happened, right? Like that line that Hugh Dancy said, but it's also like you can tell that there really was hopefully craftsmanship in it.
Well, I think so. the word that I'll go back to is intentionality, right? Like there's no way that you can craft a show quite like this, that with so many different surprises and so many different elements of like holy fuckery, for lack of a better word, without it being intentional, without sitting down on the script and going, okay, like we're going to make something great. We're not just here to do 22 episodes and then get out. Like we're here to make something like real specific and real crafted. And there's only a few shows out there that are like that. That at least that I've seen. And believe me, if you're out there going like, Jeremy, you haven't seen the room with the view of the lake, like you should watch it. It's only 6 episodes on IPTV or whatever the fuck. Like, tell me about it. I would love to watch anything like that. But with that level of intentionality, like I think it's definitely in there. The things that I always get fascinated by with Hannibal are the stuff that didn't happen, like the fact that like Hugh Dancy was supposed to be Hannibal and he brought Mads to be Will Graham.
What?
Yeah. And like there's a major death in season 2 that was supposed to happen in season 1. The fact that one of our first comments is actually about how Bedelia was supposed to be played by Angela Lansbury.
Yes.
Which is an incredible change of just about every single scene I could possibly imagine Bedelia being in, but it's very specifically the one that inspired this podcast, which I can't wait to talk about one day.
It's true. We still haven't gotten to that.
We'll get there. So yeah, it's just kind of like, I think that's what makes the show good, is the intentionality. Like I think it's that level of because there's so many. I've experienced it so many times in my own life doing creative work where things just happen to line up.
Yeah.
Like you put, there's been so many times making a video where I've put, a piece of music over a clip of something and I'm like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing that I've ever done in my life. And it just happened. Like I didn't think that I need this clip for this piece of music. It just happened. And then there's areas where you're like, okay, I need to search for the perfect thing and it doesn't just happen. And things can be both, but like this show feels like it's a lot of the former, or excuse me, a lot of the latter, of where they were very specifically like, no, we want to make you feel this way at this time. So, yeah. I guess the last call for season 1 feedback. There's so much that we haven't really talked about. Like we mentioned Jack Crawford like once, but there's just going to be so much to talk about in season 1 that I guess go ahead. What you got?
I do want to mention that you all did, because you recorded so early, you didn't bring up. I don't think you brought up the fact that on Prime 2 of the episodes were swapped.
We did after the fact. Yeah.
Did you? Okay. Because the particular episodes are the ones with the kids where Jack asks his wife if it's too late to have kids, and the one where we discover she has cancer, and they're swapped. And so when I watched them, we found out she had cancer, and in the next episode he's like, is it too late to have kids? And I literally was like, oh, how dare you ask her that?
Right. Oh my God.
And so like the fact that they're swapped, I'm like, oh, okay. He's not as much of a bast as I thought he was.
Not as much as. Still,
as much as, yeah. He's still there.
Still quite the bastard, though.
Yeah.
Mary, any last thoughts on season 1?
I mean, I could go on. I think when I finished season 1, I was just like, okay, show me season 2. Like it was just like, okay, no, I want to see what happens next. Which has been like such a marker for basically every episode that we've watched. I'm like, I want to see the next one. So yeah, I loved it. I did not think that I would love this show as much as I do. And as strong an emotional reaction as I have to some of the episodes, like I really do love the show, and I'm just so excited for everybody to start hearing like our coverage of season 2, because like we're having a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And if you guys like are thinking that we have gone deep on the season 1 episodes, like we are in the weeds on season 2.
I think season 2 is impossible to start and not finish because of how it starts.
Yeah.
And then that's why I stopped at season 3, because it does shift after that. And I was like, I'm all right.
Yeah, without getting into spoilers, I think there's a there's a tonal shift in season 3, and I'm actually gonna be very curious, Mary, how you handle this, because when it was coming out, like as it was airing, I remember going like, all right, I need plot. I need something to happen. Like let's get this going.
Okay.
Let's ride. And I'll be curious how. I haven't seen season 3 in a long time. I might actually binge season 3 before we do it episode by episode, just because I'm able to do that, and some people can't.
This is the worst.
But I'll be curious how you handle that, because it's something that I see a lot of people complain about, is the shift in tone between season 2 and season 3. Although most people like by the end of season 3 are like all back in again. So
yeah.
All I know is that the end of season 2 is going to change me. That's what I heard.
In extremely specific ways. Oh, that reminds me. I was going to, before we get into, let's take a little break. We're going to go into reader comments, but listeners, we're gonna take just a quick little break in case people need fresh water or whatever. Be a little musical interlude, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, we're back. We're going to talk about a bunch of your comments, listener comments. But first, I wanted to expose the listeners to something that's been happening behind the scenes. And so Mary and I DM each other a lot because we talk about Hannibal as well as other things quite a bit. And at one point, I started saving screenshots of things that she says about Hannibal because I just knew that they would come up later, or they were just special things that I thought, well, this is going to sound funny, and when we do our next feedback episode. And eventually, like I gave Mary access to that, so now they see an alert pop up when I save something, which is even funnier to me.
Yeah, because I'll write something, and then literally, like within a few seconds, I'll be like, getting a notification like, hey, this has been added to your shared folder.
Some of these are going to apply. Some of these are not going to apply. I'm not going to read all of these. But July 2nd, 2024, I'm gnawing at my enclosure. LOL. I need to see these men falling in love. Just wanted to.
July, Mary. It is February 2025.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Let's see.
A little dramatic. I love it. Good for me.
July 4th, 2024. The thing is, I feel like I can't trust any character on this show because they're always lying to each other. I think you specifically meant that to be about Abigail, but it turned out to be just about anybody.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's season 2. August 6th, 2024. I hate this show so much. LMAO.
Yes, I think that's when we were in the medical gaslighting part. I was just like, no!
September 2nd. What the fuck is happening? This is at 8:50 p.m., by the way, just to let you know. What the fuck is happening? Why am I rooting for Hannibal? I think this is more fun not knowing what episodes these are associated with, actually.
Maybe we should have people try to guess what episodes these are associated with. That's funny.
There's Oh, this is a good one. 7:52 p.m. on September 17th, 2024. I love being right about this show. Actually, I take it back. I hate being right about this show. September 29th. This is just 2 messages. These are 10 minutes apart. The first one says Jesus Christ in all lowercase, and the second one just says fuck off in all capital letters.
That's probably about Jack. I would say that's about Jack Crawford.
10 minutes apart, everybody. So
That might be. I don't remember anymore.
This is one of those times that I immediately saved it, and she got the notification. October 2nd, 2024. I've said this too many times. I don't see how things can get worse for Will, though. A lot of good stuff here.
I've got jokes, man. I've got jokes.
It's good. It's so good. Not going to get into that. It kind of gets us into season 2. I'm not going to get into that. Also, so that's all of our season 1 stuff that we've got. So the rest of the stuff is season 2.
Well, that was funny.
I was like, sweaty sex scene. What is that? Oh, that's totally different situation we have to deal with. I didn't label these, so I guess just round robin. We can read these, or if somebody has one that they want to read in particular, we can read them. These are going to come from emails as well as Spotify. We're going to read your Spotify handle. We are going to expose who you are on Spotify if you've allowed us to do so. As well as
describe your profile photo in great detail.
In great detail. We're going to zoom in a lot. Thank you, first off, so much for commenting so much. It was kind of wild. I've been under the weather for the last couple of weeks, so I haven't normally, if I get a notification, like I respond instantly, but I've been kind of ignoring a lot of the messages we've been getting because I just didn't have the energy to deal with them. So this morning, getting up and going through them, wow, did we have a lot to go through just in the last couple of weeks, and wow, did we have a lot in general. So just thank you so much for responding. Thank you to the people that wrote letters in, and thank you to our people in Discord we're going to get into for translating their dad's opinions about Hannibal, which we'll get to in just a second. But I think first things first, we've just got to go with this is Albane on Spotify, who just says, no spoilers, but for real, you're right. Angela Lansbury as Bedelia, considering what happens in season 3, is funny as hell. And those that know,
this is a tough one.
Those that know, and those that don't know, like Mary, don't know. So
I don't know.
I don't know
awful.
either.
Yeah, we'll get there one day. We'll talk about it. I'll play you the rap song that inspired this whole. Anyway, and then Mary, do you want to read the second thing that's on this? This is the actual reason we put this one in the in the notes.
So this is from Your Left Pinky Toe. Yes, that is their name on Spotify. I don't know if I'm reading too much into the scene with the rude doctor, but I always interpreted it as him not just being diminishing of Hannibal's medical knowledge, but also being homophobic to him. His insistence that Hannibal must be hiding that he has an infection just reminded me of the way people assume all gay people have AIDS. I'm making the assumption that the doc is basing his assumption on Hannibal being effeminate, because obviously dressing well makes you gay, and there's like a little emoji with like the eyes rolling up. I love the podcast, by the way.
Yeah, so we talked about this on our DMs. I don't know, did it ever make it to the podcast? I don't know.
I don't know, but I remember talking to you about this because, yes, I agree. Like, that's something that came to my mind when I first watched it. And it just didn't come up in the conversation, I don't think, like when we were talking about it. But yeah, I definitely thought about it.
Yeah, so this is very specifically when Hannibal is being like getting tested, like the insurance agent or whatever is like testing him or whatever, and then we later see him put on a school bus, literally brought back to school. Very, very hilarious. But yeah, I really like this interpretation. Like this one kind of flew by me completely, so I really, really enjoyed this interpretation.
Yeah, I think like, you know how like vampire stories were always like a metaphor for homosexuality. It's almost like, you know, sometimes the cannibal story can kind of be the same way. He's almost like a vampire. I mean, he's consuming blood and flesh and everything. So
Probably the number one most requested podcast that we do is Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Yeah.
Specifically because of, I think, the relationship between, anyway, we'll have to get into it. And I did an Interview with the Vampire podcast, guys. So we started it. We just never finished it. and it's not on the internet anymore, so you can't even listen. Oh, no. Katie, do you want to read the next one for us?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce this.
We'll do our best.
The name, Kekja, Kekja. I'm sure there's some pronunciation that is not phonetic for me. But what dish Hannibal made do you most want to eat? Bonus points if you know or are pretty sure it included human meat.
Oh, I actually know how to answer that immediately.
Go for it.
It's the brioche bun that he makes for Abigail with the egg inside and the sausage. Mm-hmm. I would absolutely eat that, and I would not ask what's in it.
Isn't it like eggs in a basket? Isn't that what you would call it?
Something like that.
Yeah, I've also seen like soldiers in toast or something, stuff like that. For me, it's when he's serving the neuroscience guy, the neuropathy dude or whatever, the surgeon or whatever, and it's the giant like leg thing. Don't care. Oh yeah, just looks really tasty. Just want a little bit of that ham. I don't care if it's not ham. Just want a little bit of that ham.
I'm more interested in his dessert that he gave Will. And Will's like, I don't even know what to do with that. That would be me. I'd be like,
There's never been, I think we talked about it on the episode, but there's never been a more disconnect in somebody holding such a beautifully crafted dish and wearing a fisherman's outfit. Like it just looks so strange in context. It's very funny. Like even Will looks like, why did you just hand this to me? I don't know what to do with it.
I can only imagine Hannibal is just like bemused by him. He's like the ship in the bottle, like you smell like there's a ship on that bottle. Like he's just like, and I love you for it. You're so weird. Yeah.
Looks like we have another comment from Discord from someone named Katie.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'll read this one since you just read the last one. Okay, but why does Alana give me huge ego-sexual vibes?
Yep.
Maybe I see myself in these actions. I can flirt all day long, make all kinds of plans and suggestive comments, and then want to nope out as soon as it gets physical. Like I just wanted the thought of you, not the actual you with your grimy, quote, oil fingers.
Right? Oh, God, yeah, it was his fingers. Well, so, like, in your all's coverage, you talked about comp het and, like, how, you said, Alana, just go kiss a girl, it's fine. And that may very well be the case, but I identify as agosexual, and so that it kind of falls under the umbrella of asexual. But you actually do enjoy sexual content, and, like, a lot of people who are agosexual love fanfic and, or consume pornography. And then, but when it actually comes to the physical act of sex, you're like, no, I'm good. And so, like, you can flirt all day long, you can be suggestive, and maybe even, like kissing. But then when it actually gets further than that, you're like, yeah, I'm all right. And so, like, that's the vibe Alana gave me, because she was like, oh, never mind. I was just having fun with you,
This was fun until it got real. But I think it still falls. So again, I don't quite know how ace folks kind of like, again, conceptualize attraction in that way. But like, I feel like that still falls within comp het, right? Because it's that compulsory part. The fact that like, oh, if she flirts, then she must want more kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it definitely works. And again, the only person who can label herself, whether, whatever she is Alana. And so,
well, and the beauty of fiction
what happens
is that you can see yourself like in these characters. And so I definitely saw myself in Alana's character there.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people saw themselves in Alana's character.
I could definitely see that.
For various reasons.
Mary, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, of course. Again, from Keksha. I guess another question. Outside Hannibal and Will, who is your favorite ship right now? Can't involve Will or Hannibal. Okay, if person is dead. So, yeah?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just love the idea of like, okay, if person is dead. That's very funny.
I love that too. I think I'm gonna give some love to some sapphic couples. I will say Alana and Beverly.
That was going to be my choice. Dang it.
I was gonna say Beverly and Bedelia, just because like I think they eat each other alive, but I want to watch. So
Yes, I agree.
I don't know. What about the twins?
Maybe. I don't know.
Nah.
Yeah.
I don't see them as sexual.
I don't either.
Honestly.
Yeah, they're so.
Yeah.
I can barely even remember their name, much less much less their like gender and sexual orientation. Like,
Right.
okay, so
Let's just stick with the sapphic couples, please.
it's funny that none of us are shipping Jack with anybody. I think
No,
I think
no.
I think there's no like I haven't looked at AO3, but I bet there's no like Jack/Miriam shippers out there. Not without it
I
being.
mean, I'm sure.
I'm sure there's probably a couple, yeah, but
No.
like written on a lark.
Right.
Yeah, on a dare.
On a yeah. It was a bang, and somebody got assigned the wrong thing.
Like, damn it.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
If you ship Jack and Miriam, let us know. We want to know about it.
I think you could do a. Obviously, all three of us know each other from the Supernatural fandom, and then I remember some of my first exposure to the Supernatural fandom was like gender flipped Supernatural, of like two sisters instead of two brothers hunting down the blah blah blah. I think you could do a reasonable gender flipped Hannibal with Bedelia and Alana. With Alana in the role of Will Smith and Bedelia in the role of Hannibal, and have it
Will
be
Smith?
What did I say? Will Smith? Did I really?
It just reminds me of like iRobot or something.
Yeah. Just get my wife's name out.
Yes.
Yeah. Will Smith.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, Will
Graham.
Graham, which is the name of the character of the show that we're covering and have been covering for 6 months now. I think you could do a really fun, like, gender flipped version of the show with those two. So I'll give it to Bedelia and Alana since Mary took mine, the one that I was going to do.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
So the next conversation, I hesitated to even include this because we kind of talked about this on the podcast. But this was a realization that, Mary, you had. This is basically just screenshots of our DMs that I put in here, which I'm not going to read word for word. But it was a realization that we had about Franklin.
Yeah.
And why don't you explain your realization first, and then we'll kind of talk about it a little bit.
Well, so I completely forgot that I'd written this. So thanks for reminding me. But really what I saw when I rewatched a lot of season 1 was that Hannibal is basically as down bad for Will as Franklin is for Hannibal. In the same way, right? And so Hannibal is kind of like having to see a part of himself in Franklin that he's very taken aback to see, right? Like because Franklin disgusts him. And so he is seeing a part of himself that disgusts him, like that needy part, the part that needs or that wants, that yearns, that like, is looking for that connection. And I said that I saw parts of myself in Franklin too, and that I wasn't really happy about it. And that's when I said the famous, like, we are all a little bit like Franklin. And Jeremy, you did not like that at all.
Did not like that at all. I absolutely did not appreciate that point whatsoever.
But it still stands, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it does. And I repeated this conversation to Autumn as we were sitting on the couch watching Hannibal, because Franklin had appeared, and I was like, by the way, and repeated this point that Mary had just made in our DMs, and Autumn said, I like that so much, and I hate that she said it. Like she's like, I'm genuinely mad at her for saying this. Like, I do not like the fact that she said it whatsoever, because it's true. Like, I think that there's Franklin is written to be such kind of a scrubby character, like a hanger on, like a climber on almost, that he's supposed to be like this, like kind of laughable, jokeable, like person that you look down upon. But like for all of us, I think, have the desire to maybe go above our social hierarchy or see somebody like Hannibal who we see value in because of their hobbies or their skills, their abilities, and we want to be friends with that person regardless if we know them or not. And like that, it makes us feel seeing that in Franklin and seeing how dismissive Hannibal was and how like almost just awful it looked in the show, like makes us feel ashamed for having those feelings.
I think
it's also like, sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say that I think coming from fandom, hearing him say that Michael Jackson thing about like, I could have been friends with him and I could have saved him and I could have fixed him. Like we see the parasocial, sometimes we see in ourselves, we have parasocial feelings, and then we see like the parasocial go bad from some fans that are just way out there. And so seeing that in Franklin, you're like, oh, no. Like, oh, no, you can kind of see yourself in that because there's a reason you joined fandom. There's a reason you started following, people in the fandom and stuff like that. And sometimes you have to check yourself and be like, oh, okay, no, I am not a part of this as much as I want it to be,
I fully agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that, because we're shown the story of Hannibal and Will, we kind of like mistakenly think that we would be friends with Hannibal. But like, I don't know about you guys, but like Hannibal would not be interested in being friends with someone like me.
I don't think so at all.
I don't know. Of the three of us, Mary, if he had to choose, it would be you.
100%.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's true. Yeah.
But you see what I mean, right? Like we tend to overestimate our social standing when we watch these stories because we're like, oh, I know Hannibal. Oh, Franklin is not of the level of Hannibal, but we're like, oh my God, that's me. That's also me. Like,
do you think Hannibal goes to bed at night and runs through his head when Will was like, did you just smell me? And he like dies from embarrassment just over and over.
No. I think he's doing something much different than dying.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy.
He's doing something much different.
Much different.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Katie, how about you read the next one, which we've kind of talked about already, but I just wanted to mention because even though we already brought it up once, I want to mention that Nora had talked about it.
Okay. This is a Spotify comment from Super Handy Files episode, and it's from Nora. It says, this point Mary makes that nobody knew Will before his sickness is something I never considered before, and it is actually so important in how we will perceive him throughout the 3 seasons. I hope that is vague enough.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention it. I had a moment as I was copying and pasting a bunch of these today where I was like, man, the user Super Handy Files really likes this. They've been commenting a lot. And it took me like a good 5 minutes to realize that's the name of an episode that we made. Just very funny. From our Discord, Arfina, I don't remember if this is the Monster Week Discord or from our Rudy's Discord, but they said, I don't remember if you mentioned this in the pod, but I love that in season 1, episode 6, Miriam Last picks the drawing of Saint Sebastian, who is the patron saint of the gays, with the whole theme of revealing himself, coming out as the Chesapeake Reaper / Hannibal, which I think is just very funny and very great in general. I did not know this at all. So
I wouldn't have either, but I think Hannibal would, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I think Brian Fuller would, and that's definitely the fun part.
Yeah. And I think that's also like a little comment about coming out, right? Or about like owning your identity, right? It's that like for some people this means nothing, but for people who know, they know, right? Like so this idea of flagging becomes like very interesting to kind of explore.
The next section is from Will's Lovely Lashes via the Rudy Eats Discord. And so they were saying that their dad was walking through or watching through the series, and I don't know. I think their original language is Polish. I might be wrong on that, so apologies. Will's Lovely Lashes, but I vaguely remember it was Polish. And they were saying how much their dad was calling Hannibal an asshole, and I was like, oh, you got to give that to us so we can read it. And it's just a lot of that. It's just a lot of like. I'm
reading it right now. Oh my god, yes.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's very like Hannibal is totally dishonorable. Which it's just dishonorable is a very funny word for me.
I love the translation makes it a little bit more fun.
Yes.
Because I'm sure it doesn't translate directly.
I take back what I said about Hannibal. Hannibal is not a bastard. He is a son of a bitch, which is just very funny.
Well, because earlier he calls him manipulation master bastard. Just
yes.
so much.
So good. So good. Definitely sounds like something out of a Mad Max movie.
Yes.
Manipulation master bastard. Just very good. And then Will's Lovely Lashes also wrote for the feedback episode. First of all, thank you guys for making a podcast about this incredibly and criminally underrated show. I would kind of argue criminally underrated. I feel like those that love it really, really love it. Like I feel like it gets its due, but maybe I'm incorrect out there. If I remember correctly, during the first episode, Supernatural was briefly mentioned, and Jeremy said something like, "We haven't even decided who is Sam and who is Dean yet. That will be later down the line. Is it time for that yet?" Which Supernatural character would be who in Hannibal? I don't know who Sam and Dean would be, but Jack is definitely John. That's for sure. There's some other questions. Let's stop right there. I just want to talk about who the Sam and Dean would be. We don't have to go through all of the Supernatural characters, but
oh my god,
I'm sorry, but I feel like Hannibal would be Castiel and Will Graham would be Dean, and then that might be the Destiel shipper in me. But like the otherworldliness of Hannibal kind of matches Castiel's vibe, and
I'm kind of willing to roll with you on that one. I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I think it's also like the fact that Hannibal, like because Hannibal has to kind of like fake a lot of his social relationships, or like I feel like Hannibal had to learn a lot about social interactions in order to be able to fake them so well. And I feel like there's that through line with Castiel, who has to learn about social interactions in order to be able to perform them. And so that idea of like having to perform human things kind of comes through. Not to say that Castiel eats people, right? Like we all know he doesn't, but I agree with you.
Sam being Beverly.
Yes!
Extremely competent, like willing, and you even said like Beverly and Will have like a sibling relationship.
I agree.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I mentioned Wizard Nut Grinder for the Monster of the Week Discord. I forget what their name is on the Rude Eats Discord. But we made a joke about Hannibal or Dean Winchester being in therapy with Hannibal. And Sam just walking through the background is the moose, right? As the man moose. And they did a drawing of that, which is absolutely fucking hilarious.
It's so good.
It's so funny. So jump on the Discord. I think we pinned it somewhere. So I'm sure that we did.
It has to be pinned. It's too good.
Will's Lovely Lashes continues. If you had to have Hannibal and Will over for dinner, what would you cook and serve them, or would you absolutely make it into Hannibal's business card collection? It's called a Rolodex. By serving them Wendy's nugs.
Oh man,
good question. Mary, you and I talked about this recently on an episode that people will hear in like 5 months, but we recently kind of made the same thing, right? Like you made a prime rib. I would easily make a smoked prime rib with the fancy potatoes and the popovers whose names I can't remember. I like that whole kind of spread. I think that's absolutely what I would go for.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I would probably go for something very regional from from where I'm from in France, just because it's probably stuff that like he wouldn't have tried before. So like I would probably like grill some meat or do like pâté en croûte or something, with some aligot, which is like basically like mashed potatoes with cheese melted in it, and it's amazing. But like again, like it's not something that you would necessarily have everywhere. So yeah, something that I guess he would not have tried because it's a bit too not niche, but like regional.
Yeah, I didn't even think about going regional. Like, there's so many like Louisiana dishes that are so classic Louisiana that would be fun to serve.
Because the thing is, if you go high end, you have to execute it at least as well as he does, which I don't know that I can.
True.
And so if you go for something regional, then you know how like really fancy people are like, oh my God, this is a little dish from like this small region of France. And like they make it that way because like, you know, they only had potatoes in the winter. It gives like a thing that they're not familiar with kind of thing.
Now I'm just envisioning like Tom Colicchio and Hannibal Lecter, like being Hannibal Lecter being the guest star of a Top Chef episode, and like both of them being like, you know, this is really simple, but a classical dish from France.
Yes,
like there's nowhere to hide. Like they did a really good job, and like both of them just agreeing with one another, and now I can't get it out of my head. So, Katie,
you're welcome.
Do you have something?
Okay, well, you all are like foodie, and I'm not really foodie. Like I cook to feed my family, and I'll cook whatever my children will eat. But so if you're talking about regional, like I would serve him a good bourbon because I live in bourbon country, and the dishes from Louisville would be a hot brown, which he would not like at all because it is just literally like an open-faced turkey sandwich with white bread, by the way, and with a tomato and like cheese and bacon on top of it. So like that's like the Louisville, Kentucky dish. So I don't think he'd appreciate that very much, but I do make like a good tortellini soup that looks kind of fancy and everyone kind of likes. It has like tomatoes and spinach and sausage and tortellini, and it's just with some wine. That's good.
So none of us would put human in the food. We're just going to say that. We're all going to agree.
I mean, I did say sausage. Like, I didn't say from where.
Didn't say you did. That's true. Didn't say from where. It's good. It's good.
Same, actually. I said that there would be some sort of grilled meat. I didn't say what kind.
It's true. And I said prime rib. I didn't say where the ribs came from.
Exactly.
I don't remember who's next. So whoever wants to read the next one.
I think of me. Okay. Let's see. Hi. Who's this from? Oh, Casper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he writes, I really enjoy the format of Jeremy having seen and read everything and Mary nothing. She may be a bit too smart for her own good, though, figuring out the plot like a pro. It always shocks me when she just casually interprets everything correctly. Whenever her speculations make Jeremy so invested, one can hear him forget that he knows what happens and goes along with her. I always chuckle. I also adore Jeremy's reactions to her realizations and the small references for the listeners who have watched the show. Question time. Which animal do you think Hannibal would keep as a pet?
Well, it's got to be the oh shit! Why can't I remember?
The mongoose?
The what?
Mongoose.
The mongoose. Yeah, it's got to be a mongoose, right?
See, I was thinking snake.
Or a snake.
I was thinking tiger.
Ooh,
like Tiger King style.
When Autumn's been rewatching Tiger King while I've been kind of lusting on the couch, and it's just that's a show that exists.
Yeah.
I think when I copied and pasted this morning, I didn't think of a single animal. My mind went into something that you would normally find caged that would be uncaged, that Hannibal has trained. So, like, a tiger is a good example of an animal you would normally see caged, that it would be uncaged around Hannibal. Or, like, even just like a songbird, right? That you would normally expect to have it fly away, that Hannibal has somehow, like, done his magic on and made into a bird that stays. I don't know if that's a valid answer to that or not, but it's just
so sad.
I just really like the idea of like a caged animal just being completely free to go and like nope, staying with Hannibal.
Like a Komodo dragon just kind of walking around his dining room.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
And it's like the most well-behaved animal too. Like he would not handle
surprisingly well-behaved Komodo dragon. Yes.
Yeah. Do you think the Komodo dragon would have like a litter box where he would pee and poop?
It would be well hidden.
Yes, of course.
I don't even
like one of those really fancy litter boxes that are like inside a thing there, like that's inside a piece of furniture that you wouldn't see.
Facebook is convinced that I have cats, so it keeps showing me advertisements for those like automatic litter things, like that they spin, like look like basically
they're
like,
so expensive. They're like $700.
Yeah, and it looks like like a clothes dryer to me. Like I can't think of anything else besides when I would see it. But now I'm just picturing like a Komodo dragon just getting stuck in one because it goes so slow. Just ka-thunk, 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 ka-thunk.
Oh no!
And Hannibal being like, "Lizard, not again." can't believe we have to do this over and over and over again.
I do think about like the details, like the nitty gritty stuff that he has to have in the background to maintain, like you said, like his pantry or his freezers.
Oh yeah,
or...
I think about that stuff a lot. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we again trying to think of season 2 versus season 1. We've seen Murder.
Yes.
We've seen Murder Suit, right? We saw Murder Suit.
We've seen Murder
Yes.
Suit.
Yeah,
The murder,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, the idea of the murder suit.
How many of those does he have? Are they disposable?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, no.
who tailors them?
Yeah, we have a long conversation in season 2 about this. Yes.
If that is a question that you have, we have answers.
Awesome.
We spent a lot of time on
an inordinate amount of time talking about the murder suit.
God damn. Just like, I think, didn't somebody wore a dress and then I ended up spending, like, I think Freddie wore a dress and we ended up spending 20 minutes on it on a podcast at one point. So.
Oh, it's the hat. It's the hat.
hat. You're
wears.
absolutely
Yes.
right. Yeah, she wears a hat in season 2 and we're like, we've got to talk about this hat.
Yeah, I think that Hannibal would definitely have this thing of like not wanting a pet to be caged. So I agree with that. I agree. I do the next one?
Sure.
All right. So this one is from Eleanor, aka Beverly was the only one, aka
Yes.
Agnesiest, aka longest term institutional goals. All right, so hi Mary and Jeremy. I'm so glad you two decided to cover Hannibal. Praise first. I love your rapport. I've listened to both Monster of the Week and Carrying Wayward, so I knew you were both personable and fun to listen to, but I really like the dynamic between you. It feels like listening to an intelligent conversation, and the structural elements of the podcast don't get in the way of that. Mary's ability to speculate about the motivations of characters and the trajectory of the plot is incredible. It is so very different from Carrying Wayward since she's seen Supernatural already, and I love it. And Jeremy, even though sometimes Will is Jack, I love how much knowledge you bring to the podcast, both researched and known from being a book movie fan as well, and how deeply you delve into it. This is a much more complex show than Supernatural, and it is great to listen to you match that. I also like the structure of the show. It feels like a good combination of Monster of the Week with the play-by-play and Carrying Wayward with the theme to talk to throughout. There is so much that could be said about Hannibal. The theme helps narrow the scope a bit, but I love recaps that take into account plot and characters, so I'm really glad you go through scene by scene and tie it all back into the theme. Now for the questions. Do you ship it? Have you fallen over the cliff? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm just checking that my 11-year-old is not around before I read this up. Well, because there's no power at home, right? So he's wandering the halls, lost because the Switch has no more power. So do you ship it? Have you fallen over the cliff where all you want to do is read fanfic about Hannibal and Will murdering and fucking, preferably somewhere in the Italian countryside where they raise Abigail in their cute little murder family?
Jesus. Eleanor, chill out.
We know you ship it.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly do ship it. It was like around Christmas time, actually. I was like, I need like Christmas themed or holiday themed like Hannigram fix that won't spoil me. So obviously, like, because I'm in such a weird situation, having seen only like a third of the show, I didn't actually go out and look for them just because I was like, I don't want to get spoiled. And I know that a lot of fanfics are like situated in what they call the post-fall whatever, and I don't know what that is. And so I'm like, I'm just not gonna try. So yeah, I do ship it, but I have not been able to read any fanfic specifically because of that. So there you go.
I love how extremely generic and also extremely specific post-fall is. Like, it's a great out of context thing, because if you don't know what it is, like, you just have no idea. But like, if you know what it is, you're like, you don't fucking read that.
Well, because it makes me think of like the Sherlock Holmes fall, right? Like, it's when he falls down the literal falls with Moriarty, and then he's supposed to die at the end, right? Like, and that's when people literally rioted and and went to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's house and were like, we want more of this.
Oh, I thought that was the TV show. I was like, did they really do that? Did Stephen Moffat do that? I had no idea. So,
no, they had a fall thing, but it was a different thing that was in another thing that was kind of weird. Anyway, yeah. Sherlock gets weird after a few seasons.
Shipping is weird for me because, like, as much as I like enjoy these two characters and like want them to be together, like I feel like there's like I don't do enough to be called a shipper, right? Like I don't think that I earned the name of it or something.
I don't know. You have requested that they kiss several times on this podcast.
I mean, that's shipper behavior.
Okay, well, in that case, then I guess I ship them. Yeah, so I don't know if I can go with you like while they raise Abigail and their cute little murder family. Like that's that just seems intense. But as far as wanting them to smooch, yes, I want them to smooch.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, at the end of season 1, I absolutely do not ship it. I'm still so angry about it, and I do think that season 2 would get me closer, from what I recall about it. But at this point, I'm like, you're gonna have to do a lot to make up for this, Mister. Getting me locked up in a psychiatric hospital, like framing me for murder. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eleanor, for that lovely question.
Next up, Spotify comment from Marjorie, who says that Rings of Power and Interview with the Vampire are close because of the twist, characterization, and dreamlike quality, and they are both influenced by Hannibal, and Hannibal is influenced by Interview with the Vampire. Closest for me, and the only other shows I've watched as many times as Hannibal. I am willing to roll with you on Interview with the Vampire, especially the show being interviewed or it's being influenced by like the book and the original movie. I watched season 1 of Rings of Power and I have no idea what you're talking about, homie. Like, man, I cannot follow you down this path. I just don't know. I've never been more bored by a show before than, and I really like Lord of the Rings. Like I'm into it.
Those are some fighting words.
I know.
Man.
I don't know if either one of you were into Rings of Power. I don't know that y'all have watched it or anything, but I was just like, I've heard season 2 is way better, but like it was one of those things where I dislike season 1 so much. I'm like, I don't believe anybody who says season 2 is better.
One thing. So did you binge it, or did you watch it all at one time, or did you watch it week by week?
We did it week to week.
Okay, that's why. This is not a show that is made to be watched week by week. It's made to be one big thing.
Okay. Well, then they should have released it as a movie then.
I absolutely agree with you. But I think that nowadays, like, people don't know anymore what's a movie and what's a TV show. Like, I find that, anyway, there's a problem there within the industry, in my opinion. But I agree. I think it's because I watched the first, like, 3/4 of it all at one time, and then I watched the rest week by week, and I could not have been less interested in the week by week part, but I loved the first part that I watched all at once. So I highly recommend, if you're interested, to rewatch it much more closely together.
Okay, interesting. Good to know. I will elevate it up to might watch again as opposed to never watch again. Katie, you want to read the next one?
Yeah. All right, this is from Ellen, and it was a Spotify comment. This episode always makes me laugh. It's the, I don't know what episode of television is.
We don't either.
Your all's episode, Rude Eats, 2-hour version, Mary's version. So I think... This episode always makes me laugh because I watched it with my mom, who is a psychologist. She'd been very chill about Hannibal and his manipulations and killings up until the point where he lies about Will's illness. And she just bursts out, "That's so unethical." And I had to remind her that he was a serial killer.
That's me.
Yes,
that's me.
We have one of those too, Ellen. Don't worry.
Oh no, it is. It's so infuriating because you're like, it's the tension that they create, and you're like, oh my god, finally he's getting a brain scan, and then no, and even when he goes to the hospital, he says, is it season 1 where he says he didn't finish his antibiotics?
Yes,
in the finale, and we're like, why didn't you finish your antibiotics?
Oh my god, this whole thing, like, it's just it makes me uncomfortable in places that I didn't even know I could be uncomfortable.
Yes,
that's classic. I almost said classic Supernatural, but that's classic Hannibal right there. Mary, I think you're up, which is funny because this one is just about you.
Excellent. So this one is from Mel, who is commenting on our episode. I can't believe they're showing my horny fantasies on NBC. So with every episode, I become more and more impressed with how good Mary is at predicting everything. Going as far as quoting from future episodes, Mary, you're crazy. And Jeremy, you really need to collect all of these moments and make a compilation of all her predictions. Amazing episode as always. Had such a great laugh. Haha. What? I quote from future episodes?
You did that. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said.
Yes.
You did that just a few episodes ago. You did that towards the end of season 1 where you literally said the thing that another character said in the next episode.
Yes, that Eddie says.
Yeah. And then
the thing you don't know if it's a memory or if it's something you saw in a picture book.
Yeah. And then you DM'd me right after because you usually just immediately watch the next episode. I can't believe that. Yeah, it was the moment. I'll take the next one.
That was crazy.
Which is from Beezus, who says, as someone who's watched Hannibal all the way through a million times since it came out, I love Marie's reaction. These types of recaps are the closest things to experience something I love for the first time again. You guys have no idea how amazing it is to find some new thoughts about it. And the analyzing of the episode title and theme is always 10 out of 10 for someone who thought there were no more thoughts to be thunked about Hannibal. Love the pod. I wanted to mention this one specifically. Number one, thank you very much for the nice thoughts. It was relatively easy for season 1 for us to create themes based on the titles. Because we vaguely knew what the food was. Or if we didn't know what the food was, it was pretty easily Googleable. And we could search and figure out what the food was. And it was a very specific kind of food. That is so much harder in season 2, where it can the season 2 titles can be like anything, basically. I hope we do a good job. I hope we've been doing a good job. I think we have, but just give us some leeway on that. I just wanted to kind of give some people some warning on that one.
Yeah, thank you for that, because it's been a ride, that's for sure.
Spotify comment from B. Renee. Every time I listen to an episode, I get more impressed on how Mary can easily guess some of the characters' future actions, especially considering how unpredictable the show can be. Every time she guesses something correctly, my eyes go, and it's the eye emojis.
We're going to get a lot of these. I actually did not include some of these. We get so many of these. Just people being so impressed by Marie just guessing stuff that happens on the series. Like, you're really good at it. I don't know if you know that.
No, you really are.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and like podcasting with you before, like you're very insightful and you pick up on things. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed listening to you all talk about it. I enjoyed doing Our Flag Means Death with you because of that. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna make you blush.
So loved. I don't even know what to do with it. I am blushing for sure. Yeah. I do want to say that in season 2, there is a moment where I'm like so grossly wrong that I was just like, what?
It is very funny.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's very funny,
it's just as hard not to reveal that you're wrong as when it is when you're right. Like it's
well, you know, what is it about you and season 2 and podcasts and being grossly wrong? Because we were both grossly wrong about Our Flag Means Death. So
listeners, if you can't tell, I just cut out about 2 hours of conversation of the finale of Our Flag Means Death, that you can go listen to at ourflagmeansdeath.com. Probably.
Yeah.
That probably exists.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah.
That
You
is
bought
our
that
URL.
domain.
Is it my turn?
Sure.
Ellen, spoilers for, or is it your turn?
I'll take it. That's fine. Spoilers for season 1. Considering Will's close relationship with dogs and the fact that he hears a dog getting hit during the confrontation with Tobias, I always interpreted this as Will subconscious realizing that he was in danger and needed to get out of there. In the same way, I interpret the animal inside the chimney as Will realizing that something is wrong with his home equals him, i.e. his encephalitis. I'm not sure exactly what Ellen was referencing here. I remember this episode and I remember these two things that are happening. I don't remember what they could be referring to be honest with you. But I really, really love the idea of Will's internalization of help being like a dog crying or an animal in need. I think that's a real interesting characterization. And it goes back to our conversation of like intentionality or like, or just guesswork, right? Like, did they mean to do this or did they not mean to do this?
Right. I think this is the episode where he's in the violin shop, right?
Yeah.
Like in the string shop. Yeah. I loved that moment because seeing as a lot of his hallucinations had been about like the stag, right? I sort of assumed that it was the stag that was kind of like, that was getting hit by the car, not a dog. But I kind of love the interpretation of it being a dog, because at the time I was like, oh, it feels like the stag is almost like protecting him, right? So I think that either way, there was clearly something that told Will, like, get out of there, right? Like, and that's like, I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe it's his pattern recognition. Maybe it's his instinct. Like, however you see Will, I think either works. But it's the fact that it was, his body and his mind that he has not quite full control over, telling him, like, you are in danger, you need to leave. I think is just fascinating. I love those stories, and I don't know. I'm hoping for more of that in season 2 and 3. We'll see.
We will. We're gonna see. Definitely gonna see.
Okay.
I should have put it in here because it would have fit perfectly at the end. But one of the Spotify comments was, "Don't worry, Mary. Will's gonna be okay in season 2 and season 3, just like Jeremy keeps saying." So I should have put that one in. But so shout out to that person. I don't know your name. But that's our last comment. So this podcast is finished. We're done, everybody.
Yeah.
I just want to say...
Officially done with season 1.
Officially done with season 1. So quick reminders. We're going to have our next episode out in 2 weeks. So we're going to wait our normal 2-week schedule. So February 16th will be the first episode of season 2. And then we'll be weekly from there. So you won't have to wait 2 weeks after that. Please watch social media and our Discord for us announcing what time we're going to be doing a YouTube premiere of the video and the new song for season 2, which I am super excited about.
And by social media, you mean Blue Sky?
Blue Sky, yeah, because I don't know that either one of us post on Twitter anymore.
No.
Actually, I posted on Twitter the other day on Monster of the Week because apparently... who are the two guys that from like Supernatural that do the Supernatural podcast? I never remember. Robin.
Oh yeah. Robin Rich.
Robin Rich. Yeah, they're doing the Monster of the Week thing where they're becoming Castiel fans or becoming Destiel fans now. So
as they should.
Friends, the power is back.
I heard that beep. I was like, oh, that's power.
Power is back.
I thought that the power was either back or I was going to rush through the end of this podcast because your laptop was like, we're about to be done. So yeah, I don't remember why I was talking about that podcast.
Robin Rich, you got on Twitter.
Yeah. So I was on Twitter recently because of that, because people added us about it. But yeah, we don't tweet. So go to Blue Sky, or come join our Discord. It's an open link. You can hit the link tree that's in our show notes. You can log in. We only ask that you be over 17, or excuse me, over 18, to log in. And
Abigail's rough age, you know.
Yeah. Whatever age you think Abigail is, that's fine. Q with just a ton of minors. Oh wow! We're having a great time. I've never heard a MacBook Pro make that noise.
God. Is that a fire alarm?
I have to go. This is like the big fire alarm.
Okay.
Oh.
Be safe.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Hey folks, it's Jeremy here. I just wanted to let everybody know that not only is Mary okay, all of her family and cats are okay. Apartment building is okay. Nothing was actually on fire. It was kind of a malfunction kind of thing, but everybody's okay. So we don't have to worry about Mary being crispified. And that's it. So I think I was thinking all of the viewers, so thank you.
Yes.
All of them. Katie, thank you so much for guesting on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Where can you be found on the internet?
I can be found on Blue Sky. Dusty L. Cannon.
Nice.
And then my podcast is Making It Up As We Go, all one word, on Blue Sky.
Nice. Extremely
and
good stuff.
I'm working on some new stuff for that. And that's about it.
Excellent.
Just hanging out.
Well, and I'm Jeremy. You can find me on Blue Sky, though I haven't really posted on Blue Sky in forever. It's just jeremygreer.bluesky.social or whatever.
Whatever that is, yeah.
Follow the podcast. We also do an X-Files podcast called Non-Human Biologics that you can check out at nonhumanbiologics.cool. Please check that out. This is going to be weird because we don't have Marie here to tell us But until the next episode, everybody, bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
Yeah,
Way to go. We're going to have to put some more tariffs on you all. Come on.
Apparently there will be more, so that's
Oh,
exciting.
yeah. Just all podcast till we spend our last dime.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to start charging Canada 25 cents per podcast.
I had to find my cat and kick it out of the office because she gets extremely upset that I don't allow her in here.
Oh.
I'm like,
oh no.
Look,
well, I mean, you're
fine.
definitely going to be hearing Fluffy because he seems to be, now that he saw me sitting down and starting to talk into the mic, he's starting to get agitated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, both of my animals, I love waking up before my kids are awake and just kind of having a quiet morning. But I never can have that because both of my animals are like, you're awake? You're awake? Oh my gosh. Oh, I love you so much.
You must be awake for me.
Yes. So the first 20 minutes of my morning is spent taking care of them, giving them cuddles. And then I'm like, all right, now go away.
Yeah. Leave me alone.
Yes.
See, I can't wake up before 11-year-old because it would mean waking up before 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. No.
And
I was about to say, 11-year-olds, that's that time period.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing is that with him becoming a teenager and whatnot, eventually it's gonna be
that'll
better,
change.
But yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old is
I definitely
sleeping
remember being
over with a friend, so she's not going to be interrupting us.
Mm.
I remember being that age, though, and being I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and get the bowl of cereal and the cartoons and the video games and the. Who am I kidding? I didn't really have any friends, so it was just that all day.
Yep.
Till my sister woke up and wanted to watch The Little Mermaid. My sister had the audacity. She stayed with me for about a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the live action version of The Little Mermaid, which neither one of us have seen.
Yeah, me neither.
She had watched the first few minutes and was like, "No, this is not what I want out of The Little Mermaid at all." And so she was asking me if I had seen it, and I said, "No, of course I haven't seen it at all." And she's like, "Well, you remember the first one, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I remember the first one." And she's like, "Well, I didn't know how well, because you were a little bit older." And I was like, "Emily, do you have any idea how many times you made me watch that movie?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea." And I was like, "I'm about to lose my."
That's amazing.
My sister and I have a huge age difference with our little brother. So I'm 14 years older and she's about 10 years older. And so when he was little, he was really, really into The Lion King, really into The Lion King. Neurodivergence runs in the family. Let me just say that. And, he would just ask for the Lion King all the time. So as soon as it would be over, he'd come up to you and because in French it's Le Roi Lion, and he would be like, Roi, 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 Roi. And we went to Disney last year all together, and so we were like, oh, Pierre, remember, like, you know, Le Roi Lion? He's like, what? No, I don't remember. No. And we're like, excuse me.
That's so funny. We had the same exact situation because my brother and I, we were only 16 months apart. He's older than me. And then I had a little brother who was 11 years younger than me. And he was obsessed with The Lion King, but he was also obsessed with Fox and the Hound. And so he'd call it, because Todd and Copper are the Fox and the Hound, and he'd go, Todd Copper, Todd Copper. As soon as we turned it off, Todd Copper, I was like, okay, we'll watch it again. Let me rewind the tape.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, rewinding tapes. It just came back like...
Yep.
Imagine today if we had to rewind tapes still.
We got a fancy tape rewinder that did it like really quickly.
My grandmother did the same thing. She ended up getting that because she was like, oh no, I'm too tired of them like being upset when they have to rewind the tapes.
Oh man.
I don't know why, but
oh, Jeremy.
So when I click record in Logic, like, because it's more of a music thing, it like counts down like a metronome style, like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I guess I'm supposed to go like, hey, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that now it's just not stopping.
Oh, it's just a metronome sound to drive you insane.
Okay, here. Okay, there's the metronome noise. Okay. Like, I can handle listening to myself while I talk. I don't know that I can handle
a metronome.
Yeah, no.
A metronome. And this has all changed just enough that I don't know where anything is anymore. Where is Zoom? That makes it
next Hannibal season 2. He doesn't draw a clock. He just constantly hears a clock.
Imagine. Oh my God.
Okay, so this is...
Oh yeah, it's true. I have to, quote unquote, pretend I haven't seen season 2.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing it for like 6 months now, so it's...
Yes,
you can put up with it for a week. for several hours. Okay. Does my marker thing work? It does. It looks different. Oh, they just made this whole thing look different. I don't like it because it's new.
This is what happened. What was it? Where I was like, oh no, I hate it. They made Zoom look different.
Yeah.
And Drew made so much fun of me because I was like, I don't know where anything is anymore just because they reorganized all the buttons.
I fear change.
I hate change.
Yeah.
Do you know that human beings approach change the same way that we approach pain?
Honestly.
Like, we feel it the same way.
Yeah, my husband's always like, you have updates. Why don't you update your iOS, or why don't you update your operating system on your Mac? And I'm like, no, what did they change?
Why don't you update your state of mind, man? Yeah. How about that? Okay, I had to update 2 pieces of software and then figure out a metronome. And now we are officially recording in my normal recording software. Actually, I guess I should have done that beforehand. It worked fine.
It's okay.
I think me and Chris recorded Tuesday, so you wouldn't think it would have changed that dramatically. But
for context, for people who are going to be listening to this after like 2 hours of us like waffling on about stuff, I have currently no electricity at home,
yes.
Which is really interesting.
Super fun.
Yeah, so I connected my Mac to like my little portable power bank because just to make sure that it has a little bit of extra juice, and I'm tethering through my phone my internet. So this is fun. This is fun.
I am currently reducing down the size of all of these Spotify comments, so they'll just fit on. So it just won't be one per page.
Spotify comments is something I have not looked into.
To
see if I have on mine, and I'm pretty sure I have some, so I should probably go look at those.
So there's an app.
Is there?
Yeah. That's you, like a specific app that lets you, it'll give you notifications and lets you respond, and it works with multiple podcasts and all that stuff. So it's...
I got to find that. That'll be good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And it gives you statistics and stuff, which aren't as useful because it's just Spotify statistics.
Right.
So like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what does one stream mean? What does one like thing mean? I emailed my podcast host because I was trying to figure out if a YouTube download counted as if a YouTube listen counts as a download on our podcast stats. And the guy said and it's like the CEO of the company answered me for some reason. I don't know why. But he's like, it's like 4 paragraphs. And I'm like, I still don't understand what you just said. You're going to have to, I don't have time to talk about this today. And we're going to have to go to remedial podcast school because I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah. I really hate when people start speaking in jargon and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. I feel dumb.
But it's also like, just answer my question, right?
Right.
Like,
in plain English, please.
Yes, exactly. And it's so with this electricity thing, because the first thing that I noticed, because it's like morning, right, wasn't the electricity, it was the fact that there was no internet. So I didn't know that like there was a power outage. All I knew is that the internet wasn't working. So I tried. So keep in mind,
Mary just living in a super dark apartment.
Honestly,
with no TVs, no lights.
I don't need lights right now. Like there's
but do you sleep in silence? I'm judging you.
An oven with no clock.
So weirdly, because we have a generator, the clock is on. Like I could turn on my lights.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Right. So I didn't notice that there was a power outage. So I tried to call the internet company because, like, keep in mind, I don't choose my internet company. Like it comes with the rent. And so I tried to call the company, and it said that the number had been disconnected, and it gives me a new number for this whole different company. And I'm like, that's weird. So I call them and they're like, our offices are closed. And I'm like, this is weird. So I send a message to my building manager and I'm like, hey, Jen, like, this is kind of weird. Like, I'm trying to call the internet company. I don't have internet. I have a thing at 9. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, can you please let me know who the company is for internet now? And she's like, she replies 2 words, power outage. And I'm like, oh, that does not answer my question.
Oh, that's a little snarky.
Yeah. And so she calls me after. She's like, listen, this is weird, but like, she's like, but you know what the company is. I'm like, well, I thought I did, but try to call the number that you sent me a few years ago and it's not going to work.
Weird.
So yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun to be French. Everybody is what we're learning. It's fun to be
French Canadian. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just going to say French. I'm just going to be wrong. I'm sorry.
No nuance. We're American. We don't nuance.
Yeah, so we're not.
I can't believe we're technically in a trade war together. You guys are my friends.
Such a bummer.
Such a bummer, indeed.
Also, Jeremy, how's it feel living in a red state and hearing them saying, we're just going to punish the red states? We're like, thanks.
Yeah, like I have anything to do with I voted blue.
I know. I did my part.
I feel like everybody that must live in Austin, Texas feels like I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's everybody else has problems with you guys. I'm fine.
There are 2 blue spots in Kentucky. There's Frankfurt and Louisville.
Yeah.
And there's just no.
I mean, I think that's also like that's literal. That is actually quite the definition of propaganda, right? Like to do something like for the views, for the likes, right? Like that's literally what they're doing with that, like to punish, quote unquote, punish the red states. Like that's a lack of understanding of how the American political system works, but okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, I think, responded to that. And he was like, oh, our economy is bigger, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck off.
He is
fuck
literally,
off, Greg Abbott.
He is literally a disabled individual. He's in a wheelchair. And he signed a proclamation that was like canceling any DEI, anything. And I'm sure that doesn't cover the American with Disabilities Act.
It does.
It does?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Good job,
was,
Greg.
Yeah, that was
working against your personal interest.
Yeah,
Good job.
like it was because I tried to ignore Greg Abbott as much as possible, but he's right next door. So like he's like. like my neighbor had a like a rebel flag on his porch for a little while, and I just did my best to ignore it. But it's just like Greg Abbott, like you see it every time you walk outside, so you gotta have thoughts about it. And it was just mind boggling that the dude just. But that's always been, not to get all political, but that's always been the Republican ways to vote against their personal self-interest, especially poor Republicans. Like, it's just ridiculous. So,
yep.
I wish you guys, I don't think I've told you either one of you this. A few years ago, Autumn bought me like one of those like picture frames that has like the ability to email pictures.
I sent you photos.
Okay.
I knew that.
Okay. So yeah, this was several years ago, and I just like on Twitter, when Twitter was good, I was like, hey, everybody send me photos. And because I've been cleaning recently, I finally can see it again.
I sent you some weird photos too.
Yeah, I've got some very strange photos in there, and like most of it is supernatural related because that's what happens. And it was just a picture of Jared Padalecki making like a face, but someone had taken his face and shrunk it down and put it on his forehead too, so he had two little bitty faces.
That was you.
That was you. Okay, excellent. Yeah, because that's what I looked at. I was talking about Greg Abbott, and like looked over and saw Sam's double Ugg face, and was like, okay,
I photoshopped it onto his forehead.
Excellent, perfect. Okay. Most excellent. So
I kept it up to remind myself just to send you weird shit every now and again, and I was like, he might have turned this off by now, but just for fun.
No, it's now I can finally see it.
That's amazing.
It's been years, so there's
it's literally been years.
Yeah. So there's no pictures or anything, which is great. Which I'm so happy about. Like I don't need any new pictures on there.
Well,
so.
I mean, I think I still have the email somewhere. So if you get new
I don't
photos,
even have the emails anywhere. So
oh my God, Katie, send me that email.
Okay, I'll
to send Hannibal pictures.
Because it would send me emails and be like, don't forget to send Jeremy
I know, that's
a photo.
That's the thing that I hated about it. It would like remind people that I had it, and I just because I think we bought one for my brother-in-law or something, and it like did that to me. It was like, don't forget to send David pictures, and I'm like, this is the worst kind of technology. So do not like this technology.
That's too funny.
Katie, do you have the notes page?
Yeah.
You're good.
I good.
Mary, I'm assuming that you have it.
Yeah. I have it.
Okay, well, I'm not that fucking boring. Jesus, just ask me a question.
No, but I do have a question for you because we haven't talked about this, actually. We should have talked about that yesterday. But is it, or maybe we didn't, I don't remember. Is this when we're making the announcements that we have to make also? Is this the episode where we make the announcements we have to make? Yeah, okay, cool. Cool.
Announcements plural. So just the one announcement, right?
I'll mute myself if you want.
What's the second?
Well, the second one was just like the song, I guess. The new song.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I think we'll announce.
That's part of the other.
Yeah. We'll debut the song. And along with we'll announce the date. And we're not going to tell. I don't want to tell people what it is yet because I'm weirdly secretive about those things. Hello.
That's totally fine. We can do that. So the date, we'll announce the date, and we'll tell people to come to the Discord for more details about everything.
Perfect.
Cool.
I sent you that like temporary video thing, like just like the intro that I did the other day, just to as I was messing around.
Yes.
And I did that like cute like casual thing,
yes,
where they had all the sparkles, and now I think that's going to be the entire theme of the video. Yay! It's going to be sparkles everywhere. So that's now I'm super excited.
I mean, I'm down. I love sparkles.
I don't know if I sent that to you, Katie. If you would like to see it, I can also send that to you.
That'd be cool.
Try to find this in our DMs is going to be impossible. Oh, here. Oh, no. I'm on the computer that made it. I can just upload it. Hold on.
There we go.
Duh.
Someone is very excited that there's going to be a video attached to that. So.
Aww.
This still has the old audio on it, but I just threw it in the DMs.
Well, at least the audio's like basically the same. I mean, I'm sure the beats, Judy will be like, no, it's not on the right.
Judy always hates Banshee beats. Beats. That's never going to be like.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has strong opinions about it.
He has she has Bitchy Beat transition, by the way. So if I mess that up, Katie, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
She has a habit of putting beats in between beats. So I think when, which is good for the type of music that she produces, and it's good for I think it sounds great. And I think that Judy is very used to making videos for like 4 on the floor standard rock beat kind of situations. So
yeah, okay, well that makes sense. Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the one. I think it was Careless Hunters that almost ruined her. That Judy was just like, I don't know how to do any of this. Or maybe it was earlier than that. Or maybe it was because she was trying to make me she was being so nice. Now that I know like what you have to do this was so much work, but she was trying to make me what's called an adjustment layer, which is like a thing that I could lay over that shows where all the beats are, like where all the markers are, so I could like line up all of my beats, which now I just do normally because she's taught me how. And she would just DM me. She goes, I don't know where the beat is. I don't know what's happening. There's 8 beats in this second. I don't know which beat to use. Like she would get so aggravated about it. It was so funny.
Yeah, she's really good at what she does.
No, absolutely. Yeah. She's super good.
I am so excited to see the final product.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to have more time to work on it. I've got ideas because of new features in Final Cut Pro. I hope
That's why you updated. I see.
Yeah. That's so like to just the most ridiculous thing. I want to use one feature in Final Cut Pro for a new podcast video, which meant I had to update Final Cut Pro, which meant I had to upgrade my entire computer, which meant I just now had to upgrade my laptop, my podcast recording software, which meant I also had to also update like my audio routing software. So like 5 things.
That's my fear. That's the fear.
That's of change. Yeah, that's it's ridiculous. It's so stupid.
Katie's like, this is why.
It's nightmare fuel.
So I figure we'll do our normal intro. Mary, is that?
I mean, I guess so. Yeah. What is our intro? Oh my god.
Yeah. I figured
we haven't done this in forever.
I figured you wanted to write it out while we were thinking about it.
I will certainly write it out. Yeah.
And by the way, I have a lot of thoughts on this page. We don't have to hit all of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll circle around. Like I think. You've listened to feedback episodes for stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And asked Mary last night, and she was like, "Yeah, let's just do it that way." That seems fine. And I was like, "Okay." So yeah, we'll do I'm Mary, I'm Jeremy, and then you'll do I'm Katie, and then Mary will pick up the rest of it. We'll wait a beat after episode of the show Hannibal. And then I'll take us into stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Sounds.
Should I do my last name? You all are all doing your last name.
You don't have to use your last name.
Yeah, you can be Nerdy Stein. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We don't care. Yeah. You could be Chris Mosier. I don't have an opinion on this.
He might have a problem with it.
Honestly, I don't think that he would. I think he's ready for somebody to take over his entire personality.
That's Jess's job. Wait a minute.
If anybody is ready to take over somebody's identity, Chris is like, please seal it. I'll just start.
Chris is like, can you please go to work for me?
Yeah. I'm ready to just somebody steal this identity. I compared Jess, his fiance, to Morgana the other day, and I don't think I've ever heard him laugh as hard as he has laughed.
Nice.
Because all Morgana does is like she's just very goth, and she just sleeps all the time. And I'm like, that's all I know that Jess does. It's like she plays goth video games and she goes to sleep, and like that's it.
I have to say that I laughed really hard when I heard that one too. I was just like, oh my god.
And if you see Jess, like she's not unlike Morgana, like in looks.
That's so funny.
Well, I mean, that's a compliment.
I honestly, the bar is very high to be compared to Morgana.
You're right. Exactly. I'm like, well, that's nice. All right. Are we ready?
I think we are.
I believe so.
I think we are. All right, cool. Let's do it.
All right.
I'm Marie Vigouroux.
I'm sorry. I just talked right over that. I was okay. Yes, we are ready.
So we're not ready. What just happened?
I was like, I'm going to drop a marker like out loud for some reason, which I did not need to do.
I'm Marie-Lou, and I'm going to drop a marker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Take two.
Take two.
I want Will Graham, I really do. And I think that we could have some fun. Then you can do anything you like. I might even go and help you catch the shrike. I want Will Graham, I want that man. For every meal and on demand. His mind shines and his body's cut. I know that he works for the FBI, but what other man has pure empathy and the ability to see my mind? Jack, what other thing have I ever asked you for? Besides, never looking into my pantry? And I won't get that either. Damn. I want Will Graham, I want him so. And he really doesn't need to know what's in my meals or on my mind. I just want Will Graham to be mine. I want him and I want him now. I said before, I don't care how. I'll give him tests, he'll draw a clock, and then his dark desires I will unlock. We'll be together, Will and me. We'll throw some grand dinner parties. We'll cut the flesh, we'll cook the meat. He'll eat the brew just like me. Gimme goddamn Will Graham.